Vandeham Sri Guru.
Hare Krishna, welcome to Sankirtan On. This is your host, Ananda Murari Das. I'm here with His Holiness Giriraj Swami and a large group of wonderful devotees. This is one of our first live in-house or live studio audience for a Sankirtan On interview. So we're excited. This is a whole nother dynamic. Thank you again, Maharaj, for being with us. I'm exceedingly grateful and excited. I've never actually had the opportunity to have your association, so I'm very excited.
It's a pleasure for me to be with you.
Hare Krishna. So we are interviewing today specifically around a book that you recently released, and this has been a book that has been long anticipation for it to be released. It's one of the famous stories around our ISKCON movement, the whole saga that happened in Juhu. The book that you just released is "I'll Build You a Temple," and there it is. And everyone that's watching the video, we can see it's a beautiful cover. My friend, he was saying that it's 800 pages, Marge. Or how many pages is the book in total?
Yes, 800 pages of text and 40 pages of color photos.
Wow. Yeah, and just the history that's there, and so much of what I hope to really get into is just the importance of this you could say Leela of Srila Prabhupada and your firsthand experience of it. So let's jump right in. The first question we have for you really is why to you do you think that this was so important, this project in Juhu was so important for Srila Prabhupada?
There are two aspects to it. One is the preaching aspect. Srila Prabhupada wrote me a letter before he actually got Juhu, in which he said that so far our program for India, at present, we are trying seriously for a nice house at the aristocratic section of Bombay, or for a large plot of land of several acres near Bombay to establish our India headquarters. Bombay is the richest city, the gateway to India, and in all respects, the most important city. So often Srila Prabhupada said that something like 2/3 of all the income tax paid in India came from Bombay.
Wow.
Such a, prosperous city.
Yeah.
Compared to other places. But then there was also another dimension, which was Srila Prabhupada's promise to Sri Sri Radharasa Bihari that he would build them a temple. Before Juhu, we had a rented apartment in South Bombay, quite an aristocratic area called Warden Road or Bulabai Desai Road. And on the 7th floor of the Akash Ganga building, we had our temple. And that's where Sri Sri Radharasa Bihari were worshipped. And then when we got the Juhu land, we brought the deities in 2 taxis. They were lying on the laps of the devotees in the back seats of the 2 taxis. And they came to Juhu. And when they arrived, Srila Prabhupada was having a Pandal program on the vacant land The layout of the land was that the front portion was vacant, and the rear portion had 6 two-story apartment buildings. So in the front, we had a pandal, and Radharasa Bihari were worshipped on stage in the pandal. And we didn't have a place for Srila Prabhupada to stay, but the ground floor flat of one of the 6 buildings at the back belonged to a pious man named Padmanabhacharya. And, before Srila Prabhupada came, just, devotees were there, and the front of the land was all overgrown. In fact, people used to distill illicit liquor in the bushes. So it was quite a task, to clear that front portion of all the brush.
Yeah.
So Mr. Acharya, he noticed the devotees. He came forward. He was a pious man. He, offered different types of help for the devotees. So when it came time for Srila Prabhupada to stay on the land, and we thought of asking Mr. Acharya. He was sort of taken aback, but he was very pleased. And as Srila Prabhupada entered his home, he declared, "I am taking shelter of the Acharyas." Yeah. So, so after the pandal, Narayana Prabhu made a sort of a little pandal, something like a pandal or shamiyana, and then the deities were there, and His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami commented that we offer hear stories about devotees performing austerity for the deities, but in Hare Krishna land, the deities performed austerities for the devotees.
Wow.
And so they were living in quite simple accommodations. And then when the rains came, they moved into what we called the hut. And it was pretty austere. And then finally, we built what we called a semi-permanent temple made of steel tubes, and we had like a tile floor and asbestos sheets for the roof. And so on Janmashtami in 1972, we moved the deities there. And they remained there until Makara Sankranti, January 14th, 1978.
Wow.
Which was exactly 2 months after Srila Prabhupada departed in Vrindavan. But we all felt his presence.
Yeah. Wow. And sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say the event was covered very well in the press. The New York Times had a major article about the opening of the temple, and Newsweek magazine. And in those days, color was just coming into the magazines.
Yeah.
But they had a full page with color photos of the temple opening.
Wow.
Called Krishna by the Sea.
Wow. That's what they titled it, Krishna by the Sea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And we had dioramas, had and have dioramas inside the temple. And there was one of Srila Prabhupada under the tree in Tompkins Square Park. And he began. And so the Newsweek article, they juxtaposed like a picture of the domes of the temple, magnificent temple, marble temple, next to Prabhupada under the tree. And they called it From Rags to Riches.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and so it's amazing too. I'm reflecting now that just the span of this temple being built and kind of it lasted most of, the time of Prabhupada's campaign around the world. And this was like the crown jewel in many ways.
Yeah.
Wow, that's special. A question was coming to me. When did Srila Prabhupada first kind of put you in charge of this Juhu project?
Yes. Well, I'll give a little background. In Mayapur, at the Mayapur Festival, the first Mayapur Festival in 1972, Srila Prabhupada, called me into his room. He was staying in a hut, sort of near the entrance to the land, and the hut is still there.
Yeah.
And he said during the British rule, they had 3 provinces, Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. So which do you want? I said, Srila Prabhupada, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll go wherever you want me to go. And he said, no, I want you to decide. And I realized that he was putting me in a position in which I had to surrender more to understand what he wanted. And later I came across a statement by Srila Prabhupada, which is actually based on Srimad Bhagavatam, that there are 3 categories of disciples. In the lowest class, as Prabhupada said, the guru will give an instruction, and then, halfway down the stairs, the disciple will say, so what did Guru Maharaj want me to do? Although the more literal description in Shastra is the disciple begrudges the instruction and he resents it. Second class is given an order by the spiritual master and he executes it perfectly. And first class knows what the spiritual master wants even without being told. So I felt that Srila Prabhupada was putting me in a position in which I had to come up to that level, know what Prabhupada would want me to do without him telling me. So from Mayapur, we went to Calcutta, and I was praying and praying and praying. And then one day, I just got an insight that I should go to Bombay. Because the most important program in India was life membership. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said, if you just get me 3 life members every day, I will do everything else. But I saw that if the members were taken care of nicely, they themselves would make more members. If they weren't taken care of nicely, if we didn't deliver on the promises we made when we enrolled them, they would complain and tell their friends about it. And then even if we personally went to make someone a life member, they might not want to become because of the bad reports about us.
Yeah.
So that was my reasoning, that I would come to Bombay and take charge of the membership, because Bombay was the head office. But when I got to Bombay, Srila Prabhupada had a different plan. And he put me in charge of the project.
Wow. And with this Juhu project, I mean, I think it's so nice being able to hear from you how important it was for Srila Prabhupada at that time, for both the preaching and the strategic aspect of its placement being in Bombay, one of the most important cities in India, as well as just this kind of transcendental aspect, this promise that Srila Prabhupada made to the deities, and all the austerity that the deities performed for the devotees for Srila Prabhupada. It's very sweet. Why is such a project like that happened so many years ago, why is it still relevant today? Why is it important for us to remember this story?
Why is the story relevant today?
Yeah.
It shows Srila Prabhupada's and I would say it shows how wonderful Srila Prabhupada is. There were so many events that took place along the way, so many reversals. And, Srila Prabhupada showed himself to be extremely resourceful and, of course, devotional. And so, to me, the book is important because it gives a picture of Srila Prabhupada that devotees can appreciate, and that will inspire them, to surrender to Srila Prabhupada and commit themselves to his mission.
Yeah.
Many devotees who've read the book have commented that they felt that they got to know Srila Prabhupada much better from reading the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine such as I was making the connection of how, throughout practically the whole time that Srila Prabhupada was on his campaign around the world, opening temples all over the world, this Juhu temple was in the process. And so how much heart and attention and energy Srila Prabhupada put into that project. And I can only imagine how much that perspective from your experience and from the experience of your godbrothers of really being able to see Srila Prabhupada in that arena, how much that deepens our connection with Srila Prabhupada, being able to see that whole side of Srila Prabhupada's personality and attentiveness to such a large project.
Yeah, there's a chapter in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita titled Traveling the World and Thinking of Bombay.
Wow. Yeah. Sorry.
He took, I don't know of any other deities, but he carried a picture of Radharasa Bihari with him wherever he went.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
And so fixed on their service.
Yeah.
And fulfilling his promise.
Maharaj, could you kindly elaborate just on your own personal mood in serving Srila Prabhupada? How have you what are your realizations and reflections on your mood in serving Srila Prabhupada and I guess specifically with this project?
Well, in one sense, my mood goes back to a very significant conversation I had with Tamal Krishna Goswami, Calcutta. We recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of the first Bombay Pandal program at Cross Maidan. And after the success of the Bombay Pandal, Srila Prabhupada wanted to arrange a similar program in Calcutta. And so he sent Tamal Krishna Goswami and me from Bombay to Calcutta to organize the Pandal program. And I was a successful collector, and Tamal Krishna Goswami said, you make the money and I'll spend it. I said, okay, that's fine. So while we were in Calcutta one night when everyone else was asleep, he and I met on the balcony of the temple, and we discussed many things, but the essence of what I got from my talk with him was that the secret of success in spiritual life is to follow the order of the spiritual master and please the spiritual master. And that became the cornerstone of my activities in devotional service thereafter. So in Juhu, when Srila Prabhupada asked me to take charge of the project, which was not my idea in coming to Bombay, and I was more inclined to preaching rather than to managing.
Yeah.
But when there was a meeting in Srila Prabhupada's room at the Acharya's home.
Yeah.
And and it was like quite tense who's going to take charge of the project. And Prabhupada said, so Giriraj, you will take charge. And that was not my idea. And my mind rebelled against it. But because I had that conviction, about it, I said yes. And then Srila Prabhupada said, all right, now the whole responsibility is on you. And my mind rebelled even more, like, how could he say that? Doesn't he know how I'm feeling? That was my mind, with my intelligence. So that was the beginning.
And I guess I'm curious as to kind of if there's any more insight on what your experience was after that. Like you expressed how the mind was rebelling, but how did that shift over the years as like from that moment of Srila Prabhupada asking you to take charge, the mind saying no? How did that shift for you as the project went on, even in like the immediate next days?
Yeah. I surrendered and prayed, and I'd also heard that whenever the spiritual master gives an instruction to a disciple, he also gives the potency to execute it. So difficult as it seemed, I did have faith. And Srila Prabhupada wrote a lot of letters, and he also spent a lot of time in Bombay. In fact, after beginning ISKCON, he spent more time in Bombay than anywhere else. It's in, so in the book, there's a foreword by His Holiness Ananda Swami. And then, because you can't technically have two forewords, so there's something like a foreword called Reflections by Gopal Krishna Goswami. And he wrote, Srila Prabhupada spent more time in Bombay, 554 days, than in any other city in the world. And that indicates the significance of the Juhu project and of this book. Wow. So that's a lot, 554 days. So yeah, he would come, but early on, I guess you could say a bit of mistake, or maybe you could say there's an unfortunate incident. So as I mentioned, after the pandal on the front of the land, we made sort of a makeshift little shamian for the deities to stay in.
Yeah.
And so we had a brahmachari, spend the night there to protect the deities. So one night, oh no, he was supposed to stay awake. That's right. He was supposed to stay awake, but one night he fell asleep.
Oh, no.
And some thieves came and stole the deity's jewelry. I mean, it wasn't real, but still, it was very shocking.
Yeah.
And, so the report went to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada wrote one of the heaviest letters I ever got from him, saying that, I understand that the deities are being neglected. This is a most abominable affair. And I was like shaken to the core.
Yeah.
Shaken to the core. But, I tried to gather my wits and reply to Srila Prabhupada's letter. But, he could tell, I pretty much said it, that I was, shaken. And then Srila Prabhupada wrote back a very nice letter saying that, it's the duty of the spiritual master to point out faults in the disciple, not that he should always be flattering them. And my only interest is that you, along with all of my other disciples, should advance in Krishna consciousness. So if you find some criticism, kindly take it in that spirit.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Very sweet. It came to my attention that this I'll Build You a Temple. This book is the first book really that's been published since the Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita. Can you just share because from what I've heard, and I've never written a book, but my spiritual master is Grace Vaisheshwar Prabhu has written a book, and he speaks often about the investment that a book is. Can you speak and share some insights, a little bit of the process that you followed while writing and researching this book? And I've heard it's also very historically backed. So just kind of your process around producing this book.
Yeah. Well, I received tremendous help from a disciple in Israel named Rohini Nandan Das, who gathered all the available material he could on different events in the history. First, he familiarized himself with the history, and then he gathered the material. Yeah. So I could, there are so many examples, but just to give one example, canceling the sales agreement, which was a major blunder.
Yeah.
So I would see all the, I'd see all the material on that. And that included things that I had said. It included devotees' talks in Yadubara Prabhu's DVD series following Srila Prabhupada. And not everything that devotees said in interviews was included in the DVD series.
Yeah.
So he got all the interviews that Yadubara conducted.
Wow.
And then the database, it was a great resource. All the recordings, all the letters and the morning walk conversations, the room conversations, the classes that Srila Prabhupada gave. And yeah, it was very well researched and documented. And if I was not sure if something was true or not, I just wouldn't include it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
how long was your process in composing this book?
Yeah. it began in earnest 3 years before the manuscript was ready. Yeah, I'll never forget the moment that I took it up as first priority. In those days, means before COVID.
Yeah.
Every year, His Holiness Ananda Swami would organize a festival in North Carolina called Sadhu Sangha Retreat. And every year it was only a few days long, and every year he would ask me to give a talk. So in one talk, I spoke of something in relation to the history of Juhu. And and then after the talk, I went down into the chairs in the audience, and I sat next to Ananda Swami. And he took me by the hand, and he said, I've never heard that before. You have to write this book. And that somehow that entered my heart, and I took it to heart. And that became my my focus. That became my focus, and it took 3 years.
Wow. And it was finished, the manuscript, you finished it this last 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was just trying to catch the timeline. It was kind of the last final stretch. It seemed like when everything shut down, it gave you that opportunity to really focus primarily.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I was focusing. It was. You're right about the pandemic, because although it was my priority, it was hard to focus on writing while traveling.
Yeah.
So when I was unable to travel, then I could really work on it in earnest. Yeah.
Wow. You were involved from pretty much the beginning to the end, and I was thinking too how excited I am to read this book, because earlier this year I finished Shamasundar's part 2 of Chasing Rhinos, and he was there in Bombay in the very early years, and so he gives a perspective of kind of the early days, and you were always there in the beginning. So you were involved really from the beginning all the way to the end. What's some advice that you can share on, or like perspectives on remaining fixed in Krishna's service over time? Because so many obstacles were coming up for you, and still there was this perseverance. So what kind of advice or realizations do you have about that perseverance in Krishna's service?
Well, many devotees came and went in that period. And Srila Prabhupada said that I was the only one who really understood what he wanted to do there. So I guess he was implying a combination of two things. One, my, conviction that the secret of success in spiritual life is to follow the order of the spiritual master and please him. And the other is that I actually appreciated his vision for the project. Yeah, many devotees thought, Juhu's too far from the city, our life members will never come. And at one stage, I guess they even organized a delegation of life members to approach Srila Prabhupada and say, it's too far from the city, we won't be able to come. But Prabhupada had his vision, and he stuck to it.
Mm.
I appreciated the vision, top of just, being loyal to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
And it was successful.
Mm. Mm. If there is, I'm sure there's many, and I'm sure as each individual devotee will read this book, there's so many lessons that they'll be able to draw from it. But if there is a specific lesson, do you have a specific lesson in mind, something that you really want devotees to take away as they're reading this book? Is there something in there?
Yeah, they should. They should believe in Srila Prabhupada and surrender to him and serve him and dedicate themselves fully to him. But I also wanted to glorify not only Srila Prabhupada, but also the devotees who helped him during the whole endeavor.
Yeah.
And I think many devotees, readers, have come to appreciate, the surrender and sacrifices of, so many of the early devotees who assisted Srila Prabhupada in the project. Yeah, there's one nice, I think I can find it pretty. Okay, so there's a devotee. He wasn't in Juhu very long. His name was Manasatita Das from Italy. And he later commented, "We were living in bad conditions, but inside our hut we were happy because Prabhupada was there. And we were safe from materialistic life. When he was present, he would give lectures 2 times a day, and we could see him all day long. From the Brahmacharya ashram, I could see him chanting his rounds. We didn't care that we were sleeping on the ground or in a place where rain came in. We were very happy, really very happy. Whenever I remember those days, I weep." So, yeah, I think another lesson is that, something like what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, that, any discomfort experienced in the course of service to my Lord, I will take as the greatest happiness. So, yeah.
You mentioned when finally the temple was finished and the deities were brought into their home. It was at Makara Sankranti, just a few months after Srila Prabhupada wrapped up his pastimes on the planet. You described you really felt Srila Prabhupada's presence. Could you share a little bit more about the experience of that day? And I mean, everything that was going on, it was an unprecedented emotional time, I'm sure, for devotees all over the society. But what was the experience for you like on that day?
Well, I was nervous. I couldn't sleep. And many, important dignitaries came. There was Raj Narayan, who was the Minister of Health in the central government. And then there was Vasant Rao Patil. He was the chief minister of the state of Maharashtra. And there was Prabhudas Patwari. He was, I think, the governor of Madras. So there are a lot of, very important people. And I just, I didn't want anything to go wrong. And, Tamal Krishna Goswami was there. He was very competent, and but I just felt that Srila Prabhupada was pleased. That, he made that promise, I'll build you a temple. And 2 months to the day after his departure, he fulfilled his promise. We helped him to fulfill his promise. And I feel he was like, beaming with pleasure. And one of our god brothers named Pundarik Vidyanidhi Das, he's in Alachua now. A very nice devotee. He was in Juhu, for quite a while, on and off. And he said that when the curtains opened on the deities during the opening, he just saw that the deities were really Radha and Krishna. He never had that experience before so vividly. So I guess Srila Prabhupada was giving mercy, and Radharasa Bihari were giving mercy to all the devotees who were present, and especially who had sacrificed along the way up to bring the project to its successful culmination in the grand opening.
Maharaj, is there anything that you realized about yourself or your own experience, having kind of gone back through everything that you had remembered and everything that had gone on with the Juhu project? Is there anything that you learned about yourself, or anything that stuck out to you in a different way in this process?
In the process of writing?
Yeah.
I guess what struck me was how merciful Srila Prabhupada was. I mean, during the time we were like so embattled and dealing with so much opposition and so many challenges. I mean, sort of like, you can't see the forest for the trees. Like you're in the forest, all you're seeing is all the trees. You're not able to see the whole picture of the forest. But going through the process of writing the book, it was like, seeing the whole picture. And Srila Prabhupada was extremely merciful and supportive of me. And he made some statements that really touched my heart. I mean, he said them to, I guess, encourage me, but one was that Bombay is like Kurukshetra. Giriraj is Arjuna. And then another one was Giriraj is Bombay, and Bombay is Giriraj.
Wow.
So he really was very merciful, and he engaged us and encouraged us along the way. Yeah.
This year, we're celebrating Srila Prabhupada's 125th appearance anniversary.
Mm.
What would be the most beneficial way to commemorate this occasion?
Well, reading what Srila Prabhupada wrote and reading about Srila Prabhupada, His Holiness Mukunda Das Goswami spoke to me some years ago about the importance of books written about Srila Prabhupada. And he gave the example that the Goswamis wrote so many books. But of all the books, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is the most important. And it was about the Goswamis. Of course, it did include a lot of their writings, but it was about them.
Yeah.
So, and I remember when the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita first came out. I was the temple president in Juhu. And people would come to my office and say they never really understood Srila Prabhupada or even ISKCON until they read the Prabhupada Lilamrita. And after reading the Prabhupada Lilamrita, they felt more inspired to read Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say for this, 125th anniversary, read Srila Prabhupada's books, read books that devotees have written about him, and just do anything and everything we can that would please him. And I was going to say, which means, bringing people to him, bringing new people. But he often said that it's more important to maintain a devotee than to try to make a new devotee. So, of course, he's pleased when new people come, but he's very concerned about our existing devotees, that they should be strong and happy in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, I love this point. I think it's something for me personally that's also in realizing Srila Prabhupada's, or in attempting to realize Srila Prabhupada's mission and Srila Prabhupada's heart, and the aspect of Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, that he came to rid the Western countries of this impersonalism, and how much still the tendency of impersonalism can creep in to our interactions with others, and how important it is to be alert of that, and how can I really treat the devotees in to the highest level of personalism as possible. So
nice. Beautiful. True.
Thank you so much, Marj, for just the years of service, for the years of dedication to Srila Prabhupada's movement, and to the dedication that you have to your disciples and your friends and the devotees all over. I'm very grateful that I've vicariously benefited from your compassion and kindness in many ways, and I'm very excited to get the book and to dive into it. What is the best way for devotees to find this book? The BBT has published it, and so it's being sold directly from the BBT, or what's the best way for devotees?
Yeah, I guess it depends where they are. There's copies sent to different locations. And then there's a website. I think it's...
is it the juhustory.com?
Yes, the
Okay.
juhustory.com. So you can go to the website, the juhustory.com, and order.
Okay, wonderful.
And we'll send the books to you wherever you are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marj. Thank you for being on Sankirtan with us and sharing this inspirational story. We're very excited for this book to get out there and for devotees to be able to have that opportunity to remember and benefit from this pastime.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And there's a good amount about book distribution in the book also.
Yeah.
Because Srila Prabhupada encouraged it so much.
Mm.
Although he did introduce the life membership program in a way as the main program in India, but he also said that he devised the life membership program as a way to distribute his books. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for taking this time to be with us, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for all the other devotees that have tuned in as well. Thank you for listening to Sankirtan. Sankirtan is really our heart is to inspire and share about the uplifting flow of engaging in the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. And by us serving in that, in this broader mission, how much we are benefited and uplifted in our own relationship with Krishna. So thank you for listening. And Maharaj, again, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
For organizing. Hare Krishna.